Yeah, people think we're cool, but they also hate us.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Hello, we are back. For those who For those who tuning in the first time, hi, I'm Jess. I'm a creative director by day and a third culture blob by night.
And I'm Taya, an innovation manager by day and a cultural melting pot by night.
And today, we're going to talk about
Does culture affect
ambition?
Woo! So, Jess, what is ambition?
Okay, so we once again Googled the definition on paper. Let me read it. Ambition is a strong desire to achieve something such as a goal, aim, or distinction. It can also mean the desire to be successful, powerful, or famous.
Because we should all achieve power. Ultimate power. Over 9,000 power.
Right. So, and then I feel like the reason why we decided to make it a topic, because as TCK, our point of view towards this word changes drastically.
Depending on what cultures you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who are chasing after what is a typical ambitious path versus when you're moving around, you can't really chase that typical ambition path, like career or like, lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, personally, I've always been, I feel like from outside point of view, I've been perceived as a very ambitious person, right? On paper, I was like, oh, I went to grad school in design. You didn't have to have a
Hashtag humble brag.
You didn't have to have a higher degree in creative per se, because it's all based on what you do. But I went back anyway, and then I feel like when people heard that, they're like, oh, it's because I always dream bigger. I want to like push the limits. But to me, it's more like an internal process. It's like, oh, because there are a lot of questions I want answers for, and only through education could I get those answers, or maybe in the directions of getting those answers. So it becomes more like, maybe still on paper to a lot of people, my professional background is full of ambitions, right? Like, I'm like, oh, I'm trying to climb higher at my job. I'm trying to do more things outside my work. But to me, it all comes down to less about because I want to be more successful, but more like because I want to feel more fulfilled.
I heard the difference, or why ambition is good to have, is because it's an external factor that you're chasing after rather than something that you're chasing or running away from. What would that be? Trauma?
Your
ambition?
Exes.
Yeah.
Your crazy exes.
Hey, if they're all crazy and the common denominator is you, then...
Usually they're trying to run away from me. Not the other way around, but...
all your visa marriages.
Like I said, nobody wants to marry me.
I also find as TCKs and having all these different ideas of what ambition is, you become a jack of all trades when it comes to what it means to be ambitious. Which I think we covered this in the last episode, where the jack of all trades quote is actually... oh no, did we not say this?
Can you say it again?
So, fun fact, the quote, jack of all trades, master of none, is actually meant to be a good saying about jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a master... better than a master of none? Wait, no. Jack of all trades, master of none, but better than a something.
Nice.
But anyways, they cut off like the last part of it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I covered it in a previous episode.
Yeah, you said it at some point.
Clearly, I'm really hung up on that.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
will make it a thing.
Yeah, well, that's because it's a sore spot.
And also, you know, one thing I really want to bring up, actually, I just remembered this, is a lot of people who are not within the TCK community and then not knowing the traits and being a TCK, they all view us as extremely ambitious people because they think us, the fact that us like moving around, traveling around, it's based on ambition. But, you know, we kind of covered it's also not necessarily the case.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting because most of the time it's not really, once you get a taste of what it's like to live in other countries, it just becomes part of you and you can't really think of your life living just in one place.
Yeah, and then like I would get comments like, "Oh, Jess, you're so brave and you know what you want because," and then you go after it because only you have that courage to move from city to city to chase your dream, right? But what they don't know is behind closed doors, there are a lot of things
that you're just crying. Like,
yeah, it's like sometimes it's not because I really want to. It's not because not purely because I want to pursue this career path. There are a lot of different things that's kind of intertwined.
Yeah, and it's not always ambition. Like, I move from country to country because I'm running away from something, right? If I feel too bored somewhere...
Other excess, responsibilities, or trauma, commitment issues.
Yeah, as soon as something becomes like, okay, it's time for something new, and then I just move. And I feel like that's probably not healthy. So it's not ambition, it's more like my mental...
Taya gets bored, and she needs therapy.
BetterHelp, sponsor us.
Yeah, so it really depends. But going back to the actual ambition and how it kind of affects us, I know it's the culture plays a big part of how you view the word, and then the definition changes because of that. Like, what in your case is kind of affects you in exploring ambition from your cultural background, since you have like also multiple like me?
I think it's easy. Easy. Easy.
It's not that easy, apparently.
I think it's easy to get hung up on the North American way of ambition because it's very clear on what it is and it's easy to kind of latch onto.
Yeah.
Because in North America, ambition is seen as an individual sort of achievement, whereas ambition in a lot of other countries is like the collective ambition, essentially, to like do well for the world or do well for the community kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I've always latched on to doing well in career or having things that I can take with me. So yeah, like career, no matter where I go, I know I can kind of move up whatever country that I'm in.
Yeah.
I guess athletics as well, or like health-wise.
Yeah.
You can kind of keep those as constants.
Yeah.
But things that I cannot be ambitious or successful about would be things that help me settle. So, like buying a house, having a family.
Yeah.
So those things are not, what typically people would consider successful or ambitious or kind of milestones that you have in your life.
Yeah, because I feel like speaking of like one side of being ambitious, they mentioned about success, right? And then like how you mentioned a lot of like monocultural point of view is define success in life is if you get married at a certain point, you have house at a certain point, you buy a car, you start to like invest in planning
crypto.
Not crypto, but retiring plan and things like that.
Yeah.
But
I'm broke as fuck. Just traveling everywhere. Yeah, sorry.
We're all broke. So since we traveled a lot, it's really hard for us to actually have things like a property.
Yeah.
So it's less about that, but more like I think eventually our mindsets becomes quote unquote more Western because we focus on what kind of goal and then elements we can bring with us.
Yeah.
When the next time we have to move on. and then usually it tends to be like your professional establishment.
Right.
And because that's something like you gain your skill sets, you build your portfolio, and then you can take it with you.
Do you think your definition of ambition and success has changed from when you were little to now based on all the moves that you've done?
Yeah. I think like I mentioned a little bit.
You're gonna open that? I know. Hang on to it.
Here's the thing about ambitions and change in ambition is before I had so many dreams and plans to become successful, but it eventually let me focus on pouring out these like koala
Thank you.
cracker. Oh, I gave you more than I only.
Do you want more?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes, it's changed. I mentioned a little bit in the beginning, you know, when I was little, I see ambitions as more like I want fame, I want success in what I do, what I love to do. And I wanted to show to people, right? It's more outward. It's more like I wanted, the ambition almost feels like a step of approval from others. But as I started to move around, and then everything, the things about you moving around in life or your surrounding or environments is you can't control anything during that process. Like nothing is in your control. So you kind of learn that as being a TCK is nothing is in your control. You can't just plan things and expect everything goes accordingly. There will be changes that you're not prepared for. So I think that started to...
Agile methodology.
So that started to kind of change my way of viewing, define what is ambition to me. And then I feel like going back to when we said that, you know, building a career portfolio, I feel like, I started to look for something or redefine the word success. So to me, successful is no longer being like, I need to be the best in what I do, you know. I no longer crave the idea of, I want to be the best dancer like I was when I was little, but more like, I want to do my best in that area and knowing I've done my best. So I think that's the core change in how I define different kinds of success or ambitions or me setting up goals as I go into like being a TCK.
Yeah. That's interesting. My ambitiousness was because I wanted to be more successful so that I could make money, so that I never have to worry about money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I once, speaking of, because I know we said this word so many times.
Ambition?
No, success. Success. I got a comment once upon a time from a Japanese saying that it's such a American thing to keep mentioning success in conversation.
Were you just mentioning that a lot in conversation?
No, she wasn't talking about me, but in general, she feels like, for example, at work, if we have to talk to American clients or offices that's based in the States, maybe on the call, the people in the room will mention like, we need to make this successful, we need to like, you know, make it big, make it happen. Like that to some people it's like, that's so American.
I like to think that comes from the capitalistic mindset, because when you are in a for-profit business, you are always looking at conversion and money and capital above all else, right? Like, why do you make sure your employees are happy? Because they can do more work so that you can make more money. And so I feel like that's more of a realistic way to look at things, whereas I'm not going to say a lot of Asian countries, because I think China is very I don't want to say realistic, capitalistic in that way as well, where they realize that the only reason that they're at work is for money. Whereas I think Japan kind of eludes itself, like puts itself behind this like shady curtain of, but it's not really for money, like it's for our intrinsic self and our self-worth and blah blah. But actually no, like you wouldn't have this job, you wouldn't have this business alive if it wasn't for money. However, there are companies that have been alive for like centuries or many decades, which are mom and pop shops that are, you know, they do it because they love it. So I guess
because like you hear stories of recently I heard a story about this crepe shop in, I think it's outside Tokyo, and then it's a mom and pop shop, and then someone, because you know now TikTok is such a thing, and then they'll share like 5 hidden places in Tokyo, and it's no longer hidden. So someone shared that crepe shop online, and then it blew up. It went viral. But the moment it gone viral, I think the owner, she was like, I am gonna print 200 wraps for the crepes. Once that 200 wraps is done, I'm gonna close the shop.
Yeah, but that's also the luxury of that, right? They have that choice to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
It sounds like they didn't really know how to scale up.
Wow, you are shallow in ambitions. No, it's just like a different, I feel like a different point of view of approaching the word ambition.
Yeah. So I think now I've changed that sort of way of thinking because I was in a job for so long that was very, very stressful, but you know, you make a certain amount of money. Now I'm okay with getting less money.
Yeah.
With less responsibilities, less stress, because I would rather have that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the difference of being, you know, young and cocky and ambitious. Being like, oh, I'm just going to do this for money. I don't care, you know, what kind of job it is. I just want to move up the career ladder, versus now it's kind of like, well, there. That was done. Now it's time to just chill and relax a bit.
So I'm not sure if this is because we're TCKs, or maybe it also comes with age. But you know, like, I was talking about this with my friends before. Like, I don't like the idea of, like, you know, Forbes has like 30 under 30, 20 under 20s. Like, I don't like the ideas of promoting young success.
Yeah. Fun fact, all those lists are bullshit. Don't listen to anyone who's been in any of these.
Yeah, and then, you know, because that becomes like such a huge burden for people to view ambitions or success in the beginning, right? And I feel like I was one of them when I was younger, like before I start my traveling and then going in different places, have to like give up on things that, even though I was like really in love with it, but because of reality, you have to like let it go, right? And then I feel like later on, because based on my environmental like changes rapidly and constantly, I started to view those lists of like restricting people from thinking outside the box when it comes to like how to build your own ambition. And whenever I look at that, I feel like when you're just in monocultural, it's really hard to not see it as the only way to become successful.
Yeah.
You know, kind of like similar to the story you share, like you were all about money, all for money, and then nothing else.
And you make decisions that are maybe not good for yourself in the
long term. And then we do see like a lot of people, they eventually feel so exhausted, and then they didn't really make it, quote unquote, and then they feel defeated, right?
I feel like that list is like when they peak, and then afterwards, because the people that I know, and I've worked with a few people that have been on those lists.
Yeah.
And after that they make it to that list, they actually don't do much else.
And they don't, not all of them, a lot of them, they don't do well, right?
Yeah.
Because what I learned from the TCK journey is like, it actually, in the beginning of my career, like the design school I went to, it was really competitive. And then the way like they taught us in school and being like, the only type of successful designers is if you get to work at like elite design studios, boutique design studios, or design companies like Pentagram. And other than that, or tech company, right, like Meta and Google, since it's in San Francisco, other than that, people feel like they're not a successful designer or good enough. I don't think I was following the guideline, right? When people, they could because that's privilege. I could not because I was trying to fucking visa.
Yeah.
But because of that, I learned other skill set, and then I wasn't a very traditional trained like professional designer through my career path, but I learned other skill set which prepared me eventually for the position I'm in now.
Yeah.
And then all that is not because I was focusing on I want to be successful and be the best in my industry. It was because I needed to survive, but I still want to be in love with what I do. And I think that's a part of how I view ambition and success is like I focus on what can I make the most out of those kind of TCK survival days, and then eventually get me to where I am now.
Yeah, it's tough to balance what is realistic versus what is your ultimate ambitious goal. Like, I think everyone in the world would want to work in something that does the world something better, like sustainability or things like that, but it's not always realistic to work in that sector because of, many different reasons, skill set, money, whatever. So you end up just taking whatever job that you can, and then once you get stuck in a route, for you to move out of that route is you have to take a step down, and if you don't have the luxury of being able to do that, because even moving across countries, you end up using so much money to get rid of all your shit, move to a new country, buy all this new stuff again, start up your life.
So I love buying stuff.
Me too. It's great. But I buy the most useless shit.
You do?
Yeah.
You know,
you're not supposed to agree with me.
Yeah.
How do you think views of ambition are different around the world in different cultures?
Oh, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit about how Americans view ambitions, right? Because of capitalism. On top of individualism, it's always about, I feel like the show, like Succession.
Individual success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That show keeps popping up in my head.
Succession?
Yeah. For some reason.
Yeah, that's a classic way to show what failed ambition.
Yeah, but also it's like the start of it, right? People are trying to build an empire. Like you constantly hear this this term, like I'm eventually gonna build my own empire.
Yeah.
Because to them it's not enough to just focus on one thing and do it well. The ambition and then the success eventually expand as they climb higher.
It's not even that they do that one thing well. And it's like such a shallow view of what ambition is. There's like, I just want to do this so I can build a company. They don't actually believe in what that company does.
Yeah, and also like what I mentioned in the design school experience, I feel like in America, people see ambition as a competition to other people.
So and it's like a good thing to have as well.
It's a good thing to have,
and if you don't have it, they're like, you're lazy.
But then also I also see the problem, right? Like kind of like what I mentioned about everyone was like programmed to think there's only one way of success of becoming a graphic designer. If you're not working in that way, you are labeled as not successful, right? And then I think that really take a toll on a lot of people. Yeah. Like a lot of my friends, they really struggled finding and shaping their career path because of that. So apply that back to like American type of ambition is when they're doing one thing and like you mentioned, probably they haven't been doing it to the max or perfected to the max. Sorry, I hate perfection as a word, but maybe like dive deep or enough. They are already looking around and see what other people are doing and then being like, I'm also gonna do more. And then
I need to do more than this person.
Yeah. So like that's why back in New York there are so many slashers.
Yes, it reminds me of
the slashers.
That people who are, I have a Zine, I have a podcast, I have
I'm a DJ, and then I also like, help people with their careers.
Yeah.
So I think
personal coach.
Yeah. I think like the intention behind it is good. Like you should think more in an agile way. Like,
wow, you're coming around, Jess.
Oh my god. There's not only one way of becoming successful, but there's like a fine line between you being flexible in your own potential versus I want to build an empire because everyone's doing it, and and then you're being unrealistic about it.
And everyone can have a very different view of what success is, but what you're saying is in America they have a very one-note kind of way.
Yeah, so I feel like that's, at least to me, that's how I view how people approach ambition, is they always feel like they want to climb higher and higher, and then they want to have more. Yeah. And then sometimes it gets a little bit too greedy, like, and then a lot of people ended up doing nothing, right?
Right.
And then I feel like
paralysis.
Yes. And then I feel like in Asia, however, ambition is they see what I just said, like an American dream, right? So it's like on paper they get that's like how Western people view success, maybe, but in Asia it's more like what I like is more like an internal.
It's a collective. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or your success means, well, a lot of these milestone things, right? Marriage, office job, living with your parents, dying.
Where did living with your parents come from?
Well, that's no, but that's the whole thing. It's you like get married, have kids, and then eventually your parents, when they get old, will either move in with you or something, and you have like this house with like 3 generations.
Yeah. And then your success, I think,
a wholesome life.
Yeah, and then like the success also includes you're able to financially provide not just for your family but also your parents, right?
Yes.
I feel like it's such a thing to pay back. To your parents.
Yeah.
And then it's definitely not obligation as much in the States.
Yeah.
Like it's a personal choice versus in Asia it's like if you're able to pay back.
Yeah.
That's also part of success.
There's so many obligations in Asian culture to your family or to other people. It's so much about what you give to other people.
Yeah.
Like what societal pressures that there are. So your definition of success is how well you can, abide by those obligations.
And then it's talked about, right? So that's like also part of the how they view ambition as successful. Like if you have conversation with them, they're like, oh, one day I'm gonna buy my parents a house.
Yeah.
And that's something you brag about versus not saying that people in the States, they don't do it. They just don't think it's something that would.
Well, first of all, they don't brag here.
Yeah, but they will like humble brag about, recently, it's not a big deal, but just got my parents the 5th house.
Interesting that they don't view career ambition or like climbing up the ladder as a good thing here. Ambition is often seen as negative here, I find, because it's so much about what you do and what you is kind of seen as bragging, I suppose.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, but it's also weird to me because people work themselves to death. Like, the work-life balance here and the work culture here is atrocious. People work, 12, 14 hours a day, and that's just expected. So it doesn't connect for me that's seen as a positive thing, that you work in like this low to mid-level job your entire life, all these hours, without wanting to move up in the career ladder so that you can make more money or have less hours so that you can provide for your family. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, can we talk more about that? Because I feel like it's such a culture shock to me.
Yeah.
In Asian culture, ambition goes back to how can you honor your ancestor, how can you honor your community, how can you honor your family.
The collective success.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And then in Western culture, it's individual. In Europe, it's quite different, and I kind of think it's a very healthy way to have success and ambition. And I think maybe, and I just have the narrow view of Berlin in Germany, but I found there it was so much about work-life balance and so much about not working, but what they consider success, and I just say collective they, I'm sure there's always exceptions, footnote, but their whole thing was, this work thing is so not important. So while, having a job is important so that they can make money, what they find successful is having hobbies and having a full life outside of work and achieving contentness and happiness rather than in your personal life rather than in your work life. So your work is just such a minimal part of who you are. in what your definition of success is, and therefore your ambition goes more towards having more free time, having, I don't know, hobbies or closer, deeper relationships with people.
Can I challenge that mindset? Not just like towards
to me
Europe.
Or to Europe?
Europe.
Okay.
Europe.
Europe?
You up.
Challenge it, go for it. I'll speak for all the Germans.
Yeah, because that's the right way to do. Yeah. I feel like a lot of time we see the system or like lifestyles in Europe as like a good thing, but that also comes with privilege.
That is true. Yes. Yeah.
So I feel like, and that's not just in European culture, right? I feel like everywhere, when you view ambition as a word, it comes with the privilege you have, and then you see the ambitions. Like I feel like, for example, in Asia, like some countries, including Japan, they see ambitions as such a like, it's like stability. It's all about like shared ambition that also comes with a certain privilege. Allow them to be that, right? Yeah. Allow them to be like, I would rather work at a company with a minimum pay for 15 years because nothing challenged them to do otherwise. And I think in America, the privilege is you get to think like you can have all the slashes is because the freedom of being yourself, the freedom of having your own voice, the freedom of you put the light that's shining on you is celebrated. So that's their privilege. And of course, European, I've never stayed there, so I don't know what the privilege necessarily is. But I feel like when it comes to ambition, that's also that side of it.
Yeah. I mean, you're living in a rich country. You know that you're probably going to be able to get a job. You're not struggling to put food on the table. Yeah. At the end of the day, the government will take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah, because... Exactly.
Actually, I knew a lot of people there that just decided not to work and just took government assistance.
Yeah, and then I'm like...
completely happy with that.
Yeah, I'm like, good for you. Good for you for, you know, get to have that privilege of work-life balance. But I think what I learned is never... I think we talked about this over and over in privilege, in previous episodes. Is like, there's no right and wrong. Yeah. There's not that black and white, and it's just different environments, different situations.
It's just the worst when it's like hypocritical in a way, because the same people who, I knew this bunch of people who like quit their jobs, got government assistance, decided to invest in crypto. Some of them decided to move to Portugal because crypto's not taxed there. They look their nose down on people like me who worked in tech, and they're like, oh, they're gentrifying Berlin. And I get it. It has happened, and I don't think it's right nor wrong. It's just kind of the way things go eventually. But why are you talking shit about all these people who are working there and paying taxes when they're paying taxes
so you can enjoy your life? Benefit. Yeah, exactly. So,
and if you wanted to compete for that job, you'd probably get it if we had the same skill levels and all that. Yeah. Just from the fact that you don't need a visa and things like that.
Yeah, so I think that's one thing about like when it comes to talking about ambitions and success. I think no one should ever apply their method onto other people, and that happens constantly. And then it goes as little as to, you know, for example, at work, we work with people from around the world all the time, and then some people, they would just be like, we're in Europe time zone, we're not going to work overtime. And then on our side, we're like, great, because you decide to not pick up that task, we have to pick it up for you, so things are still running. And then, but in their view, it's like, yeah, because you keep doing that, so that's why it's kind of feed into this like vicious cycle. And we're like, no, the reason why you get to get a break, it's because we still are working nonstop, right? So I feel like that's like also affecting how people view what the definition of
ambition, success. Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I think we spoke about this in another episode where they look for international talent for leadership positions, specifically in Japan, because they know that they're a little bit more, I guess, strong-headed or able to, you know, voice their opinions. And so they're looking for that diversity in leadership. Meanwhile, that sort of ambition is negatively looked upon here. So it's like that balance is tricky to balance as a TCK. working in a professional environment.
Yeah, people think we're cool, but they also hate us.
They hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's important for TCKs to embrace their ambition no matter what culture they're in?
I think the evidence pretty clear, right? Like throughout this whole conversation, we shared the point of view. The reason why we have those perspectives is because of our background as TCK. Like we know, again, nothing is black and white. But it is important to have a goal that you can focus on throughout life in general. Like this is getting very philosophical, but it's true. Is ambition? It's tailored to the person. So there's no
your own personal definition of success.
Yeah, there's no a must or the only way. It really depends on your circumstances and environments and what you want as a person. Yeah. And I feel like as TCK, we starting to get really philosophical about this because it's less about, to us, a tangible success, but more about how can we see it as a journey that we can take with.
Yeah.
And
it's easy to get distracted or sidetracked by all these other perceptions of what success and what ambition is. Because if you keep kind of pivoting, then you're never going to get to that point.
Yeah, and then I think ambition's like a lot of life goal set words. It's like, it fluctuates. It changes, depends on like what stage you're in your life.
Yeah.
So there's really no, just because you decide you want to become this one day doesn't mean it has to stay that way 5 years later.
Yeah.
Like everything's changes and then you change and then you evolve as a person.
Like when you're young, you have all these crazy ambitions that you think is achievable.
Yeah.
But then you realize as you're older that it's either too difficult or maybe that's not your priority anymore.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you have to settle for less, or I think that's also a false like presumptions for people to have, is like, oh, by me stop thinking that this is right or important to me, I'm settling for less, or I'm like actually losing something. It's more like changing an angle to do it. Like to me, you know, once upon a time I want to be the dancer or the performing artist on stage, or to become an artist on a Broadway show. No longer able and possible to achieve. However, I change the way and to be like, okay, I blend music and performing art into my work.
Yeah.
On the other side, and that works.
Another sort of creativity. So you're always using your creative brain. What is the end lesson here, everyone? How can we as TCKs embrace our ambitions across these multicultural distractions, so to say, or learning experiences? There we go.
Yeah, I'm curious about like how do you define success, ambition? What's your goal? Do you have a goal? Do you have struggle finding a goal, or things like that? Because I feel like we are in a privileged position of we know what we want.
Yeah.
But I also know a lot of people, they're still searching for it. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to, again, the shenanigans of 20s under 20s, it makes people who are still searching nervous.
Yeah.
And that's so bad.
And it's okay to not ever know what you want, really.
Yeah.
I feel like I have vague ideas of what I should go for or progress towards, but yeah. Remember that every corpse on Mount Everest was once a very ambitious person, so the lesson here is don't be ambitious, just stay on your couch, watch some TV, and watch other people be ambitious.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, focus on yourself.
Haters gonna hate.
And
keep an open mind. Everyone's got a different view of ambition or success, so yeah. Some people that you might not deem as ambitious or successful are probably very ambitious and successful in their own way as well. And
then there's a phrase of every corpse.
Oh, I just said that. Mount Everest was once ambitious. Another thing is, I wanted to touch on this earlier, is a Dunning-Kruger effect. Is when you don't know a lot about something, then I think you have an unrealistic view of what's achievable. So Yeah, people who sometimes may seem shallow ambitious, you know those people who are like, oh, why don't you just do this? Why don't you just do this? It's probably because they just don't know any better.
Also, we're forever students. Stay curious. You never know how much more potentials you have in you until you are willing to learn. And
this is like the disclaimer on a candy bar that says, may contain nuts.
There you go.
All right. Well, that's our episode on Does Culture Affect
Ambition?
Now it's time for our contemplation of the day. Oh, this suit jacket. I tried to look like an ambitious Japanese salary person today, and it's very tight.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn.
One cannot step twice in the same river.
I mean, technically you can. It's just
because the water is it's ever flowing.
How can we tie this to the episode?
Like I said, there's no set template of what it means to be successful, and because
exactly
your life is the river.
Right, and you can't step foot in it twice.
So don't lock on just one goal and then be set with it, because as you're moving, the goal also shifted.
So tell us what you think. Anything we say resonate with you, or anything that we said you hate, you're like, they don't get it.
Like, that's dumb.
Let us know. Drop a comment on whatever platform you're using.
If you watch from YouTube, hit like and drop a comment. If you are listening on Spotify, follow us and drop a comment. And if you are on Instagram, then follow, reshare, and drop a comment. And also, if you are young enough and have TikTok, then share and drop a comment.
We love to hear stories from our listeners, and other crazy TCK stuff.
Honestly, when you respond to all the DMs and comments, because we love talking and typing.
Even dick pics. Send them. We'll comment on your dick. We'll rate it.
Only the beautiful dicks.
Until next time, stay crazy.